Page it is on. Very first inside the front cover on your book of instructions. And on here, the thing that you want to watch regarding the beading foot, it's not difficult, but I've got a couple of pieces here that were not lined up. This is a little bag of how not to do things. It's always nice to look at an example and see what happens if, so that when it happens, you'll know what to do to fix it. If you look at this one, it's kind of puckered, it's kind of pulling in, and we'll pass it around so you can see. In both cases, it's the same thing. It's because the stitch length isn't quite long enough to be going in, so it's kind of pulling the fabric around. So when you're doing this, you want to set your stitch length as long as your beads are wide, so that it goes over them. Okay, and it's not difficult to do. We don't want this one.
No, I'm good. Don't move.
Now, in here, we got fabric, and we got a lot of pieces of beads.
And that instruction book that Alice has is very helpful because it tells you exactly what stitch to set up for, if you need to cut fabric, what size to cut the fabric, everything's in there.
And it's found on the inside flap of your case with all the feet in it, okay? It comes with. So, calls for a 3-thread rolled hem, stitch selector D, needle, want the right needle in, stitch width on M, whoops, and
What does M mean?
actually, I find this very interesting. The M on these machines, on any of the baby lock machines, if somebody had an Evolution before they got this, or an Imagine, it's the same thing. Many, many years ago, one of my first sergers, in fact it was the first serger I had, it had an M on it also, but I had to turn it to the M to move the thing over so I could change the cutter and all this jazz. Not so anymore. It was a setting that whoever worked there, he was, I don't know whether a CEO or just what he was, but anyway, he was a high upper echelon person there at Baby Lock. And they made this setting and they called it the M, and it was a special setting. Well, they don't need those settings anymore. They now have it so you can turn, and it's a lot easier, believe me. The M now gives you a 1/4 of an inch seam. That's what it's for. Doesn't do anything else other than, and they really could take it off and put a number in there. But they decided that in honor of him, they're keeping the M.
Oh.
And that comes straight from Fenton, Missouri. When I went down there for, when he sent me down there for the,
So if you're doing quilting, that's your setting.
that's your setting. Yep.
Your piece
Doesn't
of
matter
wood
what
top.
the thing tells you, just set it for M because that's the stitch width you want.
Is that like written anywhere in the?
I
in the
have no idea.
documentation?
Do you think I've had time to sit down and read the manual? Okay, so here we go.
only know how to do it, hands-on.
Okay, so here we go. I'm going to take this, and we're going to start off, regardless of where you're putting these things, you want to first,
See, she has that problem too.
what's that? Remembering that it's in
Remembering the
front?
side, yeah.
Oh yeah, well, old habits are hard to break. Okay, so I'm going to stick my beads in through the channel here. And because they like to kick over and whatever, I'll use the tweezers and grab it until I can get them under the foot so that they line up with the part that's after they're stitched. I'm going to put the foot down, and I'm going to take by hand a stitch or two. And I don't think I want to. I'm going to take it maybe up to 3. I may have to go to 4. Okay, make a stitch there, baby. And then go to the next one. Okay, I think I'm okay. Now, at this point, I can raise the foot just a little bit and get it over here. I can cut off or not, depending. And you don't stitch fast with this foot. You take your time and you watch what's happening. See, I want to go to 4 so that I have a longer stitch length because it's kind of gathering up here. And one of the things you need to remember is no matter which foot you're using, no matter, don't lose it, Alice, it's going to kick. Yeah, it's pulling on here because, so I would want to play with this, with the stitch length and perhaps even the tension a little bit more. No, it's not
That's a
gathering.
special effect.
Well, yeah, it's kind of interesting, but
Gathering.
that's not exactly what I wanted. But that happens. I mean, you know, so that's why you always want to take your fabric and whatever, if it's beads or whatever, you want to make sure that you try a sample out first. It could be that this fabric isn't quite as nice as it should be.
Is that the biggest bead that you can fit through there on that foot?
It's pretty close to the largest one. Mm-hmm. The thing is, these I find at places like Hobby Lobby or Joann's, and I find them with the ribbons and stuff, you know, the trims. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, this company tells me I get 24 feet. This is Hobby Lobby, but it doesn't give me a clue as to what millimeter they have on here. So that's why you have to start out and kind of watch it so that you can see how it's going over that bead and that it's going to, you know, as it moves forward, it's going to the next one. Usually about 4 millimeters on the stitch will work pretty well. So, but we have that one. And then the other one is, you move the left needle, place the standard foot, position the beads in the fit as they show you, and then place the edge of the fabric you are attaching the beads to under the presser foot, lower the presser foot, and stitch. It is recommended to sew a test sample before sewing your actual garment to determine the correct stitch length. Therefore, they didn't put that sentence on there just to take up space on the page. Read it and pay attention to it, because the samples are what are going to make the feet work the very best for you if you take the time to, you know, adjust them.
And you always do that on a raw edge? I mean, does it finish the edge? So you don't have to worry about raveling.
You're doing a rolled hem stitch, so yeah, it does finish the edge.
I see. Okay.
Okay. Maybe if I went down like this, that would help also.
What?
Take the differential feed and push it down, because sometimes, depending on the fabric, the stitch, and I've got extra beads here, so I'm going to do this again, and we're going to see if that makes a difference. Okay, I'm going to get that looper back out of it.
Alice, should we lower the speed on that machine so nobody goes out of control?
Yeah, we can do that. We make them go slow. The governor's on this one, kids.
Might as well use the features, right?
Take advantage of it.
Well, this is the first serger I've ever sewn on that had a speed control on it.
I know.
I mean,
I love it.
and it's great. It's just that I kind of don't pay attention to it because I'm so used to, if I'm in a school zone, take my foot off the gas pedal, you know. Okay. Get another. There we go. Okay. Well, let's try it this way and see if that eliminates some of that stretching of it. Or gathering it. Now, don't you do that. Come on. All it was doing, when you heard that noise, all it was doing was getting the bead. Oh, this is fun because the fabric wants to be its curved.
That is hard to tell. Yeah.
On the other hand, we may have shearing that has beads on both sides. Actually,
I think that's straighter.
it is much straighter, yes. It's looking funny because it's gathered on this side. So if you find that it's gathering, don't forget your differential feed. They're not going to tell you about the differential feed in here because it truly does depend upon the fabric that you're using. But when you're having problems with fabric gathering or something, go to your differential feed to set it, okay?
And you'd push it to the bottom.
Push it to the bottom. You want to stretch that fabric to keep it from doing. What's happening is that when you have it set for a rolled hem, quite often I take it down to the 0 point something, usually 0.6. Your lower loop retention is very tight. That's what's pulling against the needle thread and pulling your fabric over to make the rolled hem. So because of that, when that lower looper is tight, that's when you quite often will get puckering on your fabric, right? Those of you who have had other surgeries. So, now you know how to do shearing with